Who's it by?
This is by Dr. Seuss. Not many of you know it. And it's called Fidwick the Big-Hearted Moose. Up in Lake Winnebago, the far northern shore, lives a huge herd of moose, about 60 or more, and they all go around in a big happy bunch, looking for nice tender moose moths to munch. Up at Lake Winnebago one day, while they were lunching, just strolling along and enjoying their munching, for the moose moths that day was especially fine, when it happened that Fidwick was the last moose in line. He saw a bingo bug sitting. The bingo bug called out, "Hey, it's such a long road and it's such a hot day. Would you mind if I rode on your horns for a way?" "Of course not," smiled Fidwick, the big-hearted moose. "I'm happy my antlers can be some of use. There's room there to share. There's room there to spare. I'm happy to share, be my guest, and I hope that you're comfortable there." So the bingo bug picked out a nice easy seat, and the moose went on looking for moose moths to eat. Well, an hour or so later, the bug heard a squeak of a small voice of a little tree spider speak. "I say," said the spider, "you've got a fine place. The moose seems quite friendly, has such a nice face. If I got on too, do you think he would mind?" "Hop aboard," laughed the bug, "and I think that you'll find that the moose won't object. He's the big-hearted kind." "Well, I accept," said the spider with joy and delight, and he started a web on the horn on the right. Now, while the spider was spinning, he heard a gay song of a fresh little zingazoo bird came along. He stopped and he stared and he chirped, "Well, well, well! What a good place to build! What a great place to dwell! I've been living on trees ever since I was born, but here's something new. Why not live on a horn? If there's room there for two, do you think there's room there for three?" "Hop aboard," laughed the bug, "and it's free." Fidwick had stopped walking. What was all that talking? Fidwick's guest had caught Fidwick the moose unawares. "Hey!" he called out. "What goes on there upstairs?" "Just building a nest, sir," the zingazoo said, and began yanking hairs out of poor Fidwick's head. He plucked out exactly 204. "Don't worry," he laughed. "You can always grow more." So he dozed off to sleep in this fine moose hair nest. "This bird," murmured Fidwick, "is sort of a pest. But I'm a good sport, so I'll just let him rest. For a host above all, you be nice to your guests." "Well, what would you do if it happened to you? You couldn't say scram, because that wouldn't be right. You couldn't say scat, because that wouldn't be polite. A host has to put up with all kinds of pests. For a host above all, you be nice to your guests. Besides, it's getting quite late in the day, and surely tomorrow they'll all go away." But lash the next morning, the sun's early light brought to Fidwick's sad eyes a most unwelcome sight. "Me and my wife," said the bird, "I was married last night. And perhaps, by the way, I should mention to you that our uncle is coming to live with us too. You're a very fine host, so I knew you'd be willing." So the uncle, a woodpecker, started in drilling. All of Fidwick's friends shouted, "Get rid of those pests!" "I would if I could," sobbed poor Fidwick. "They're guests." "Guests, indeed," his friends answered, and all of them frowned. "If those are your guests, we don't want you around. You can't stay with us because you're just not a salt." And they all turned their backs and walked off with a snort. So the big friendless moose walked alone and forlorn with 4 great woodpecker holes in his horn. "Look at those holes," whispered Herman, a squirrel who spied him. "What holes to hide nuts in? Mind if I try them?" "They're yours," cried the woodpecker. "Get right inside them. This moose runs a public hotel. Bring your nuts, bring your wife, bring your children as well." So the whole squirrel family jumped on pell-mell. Well, it was winter time, and that wasn't easy, for the moose moths get scarce and the weather gets freezy. Up at Lake Winnebago, the cold northern shore, you try to look for food, but there just was no more. Then he saw his old herd leaving, and he knew what he had to do. He'd starve if he'd stayed. He would have to go too. He stepped in the water, then, "Oh, what a fuss! Stop!" screamed his guest. "You can't do this to us! These horns are a home, and you've got no right to take ourselves to the far distant side of the lake." "Be fair," Fidwick begged with a lump in his throat. "We're fair," declared the bug. "We'll decide this by vote. All those in favor of going, say A. All those in favor of staying, say nay. A, shouted Thidwick, but when he was done, nay, nay, they all shouted. He lost 11-1. We win, screamed his guest by a very large score. And poor starving Thidwick climbed back onto shore. And you know what those pests did? They asked in some more. They asked in a fox who jumped from the trees. They asked in some mice, and they asked in some fleas, and they asked in a big brown bear. And then, if you please, came a swarm of 362 bees. Thidwick had taken a groan to his knees, but then came something that made his heart freeze. Bullets being bouncing right past his face. Bullets being bouncing all over the place. Get that moose! Get that moose! Thidwick heard a voice call. Fire again! Fire again! Shoot straight, one and all! We need his head for the Harvard Club wall! Then finally they had him, because all those pests he had run out of luck. From that 652-pound bear, he was stuck. He almost fell overboard. He felt fate, and the whole world grew fuzzy. He was finished completely. Or was he? Finished. Not Thidwick, decidedly not. It's true that he was in a most terrible spot. But there is one thing that he had forgot. A little something that happens each year to the horns of all moose and the horns of all deer. Yes, today was the day Thidwick happened to know that his old horns come off so that his new ones can grow. And he called to his pests as he threw them. You wanted my horns? Now you're quite welcome to them. Keep them. They're yours. As for me, I shall take myself to the far distant side of the lake. And then he swam away, and he found his old bunch just in time for a wonderful lunch up at South Winnebago where there's moose moss to munch. His old horns today are where you knew they would be. His guests are still on them, as stuffed as they should be.